Education Minister Stephen Lecce joins us to talk more about the negotiations with CUPE and the effort to move forward with anti-strike legislation. Minister Lecce, you promoted that your goal is to keep kids in school, so why not negotiate a more reasonable offer with CUPE?
That's exactly what we've been trying to do with the union when they announced on Sunday that they're proceeding with a strike. Disruption on 2 million kids after these kids have been through so much difficulty in the pandemic. And frankly, the strikes that just preceded the pandemic 3 years ago, we offered the union an off-ramp. We said, please, honestly, for the sake of these kids, work with us. We're going to give you a better deal. We increased our offer 10% over 4 years, which is in line with much of the private and public sector offerings. We said we maintain the best benefits, the best pension, and 131 days of sick leave. And we're also going to increase the amount of staff. We're going to hire 1,800 more of their members. And the union said no. They're going to proceed with the strike, and more importantly, on the basis that they're not getting what they want, which as of Sunday was a nearly 50% increase in compensation, 33% in pay alone. We're talking about 11% every year in salary alone, which is of course astronomical for the taxpayer. It's $19 billion if you apply that sector-wide. So I really hope that the union will propose something more reasonable. We're always going to stand ready to negotiate, of course. But in the meantime, I am not going to sit back and hope for the best. We're taking action with this legislation, and the aim, should it pass, is to help prevent strikes and support stability for these kids. I think that's really important to their mental and physical health.
Some of these support workers, janitors, secretaries are making less than $40,000 a year. Is that actually a salary that you could live on?
Well, the average salary for CUPE is roughly $49,000. In fact, they make $27 an hour. They're the highest paid in Canada. I mean, we got to compare these workers not to, some abstract, got to compare to actual provinces that fund their education system. And every single province is behind us. We offer them the most. We, of course, in addition, have the pensions and benefit programs that most people in the private sector do not have or couldn't dream of. Remember, they had job security during the pandemic when many people were laid off. We have made sure they had a good deal and they were supported in their time of need. We now need them to step up and support our kids, and they should not be on a path to a strike. That's why we're increasing their pay, to give them a reason to stay at the table. But what we heard from the union is we will strike unless we get a massive increase in pay. And I wish they'd put the interests of children over their own self-interest and work with the government to avoid a strike so that these kids could simply be in class. It's a simple request. Let the kids go to school. Let them learn and heal and thrive in front of our educators with their friends. And I do hope that some common sense will prevail and we can avoid the strike. But the ball is entirely in the union's court, who's called the strike and who's on path to impact about 2 million kids on Friday. And I think that's just frankly unacceptable.
Let's talk about Friday. If workers walk off the job, they could be fined a cap of $4,000 for individuals, up to $500,000 against the union itself. How far are you willing to go with these fines?
Well, back to work legislation always includes penalty clauses. That's in the legislation for a reason, to create a strong deterrence from violating the law. Our expectation is Friday, our workers in our schools who do wonderful work with our kids, that they're going to be there for students, that they're not going to cause a disruption. They're going to be in the classroom, in our schools, making a difference where they and our kids belong, because we believe kids have a right to go to school. And I think many people in this province, many parents in this province believe that enough is enough with the constant strikes of this province. These kids deserve to be learning, especially given the learning recovery challenges we know, the real learning loss we see in reading, writing, and math. So my hope is we will not have to go there. My hope is the union will pause, reflect on this really unfair impact on kids and parents and childcare, and of course do the right thing and work with the governments to get a deal we can live with that avoids the unnecessary and unacceptable strikes that really hurt these kids the most.
All right, so fines potentially on the table here. And speaking of what is unfair, CUPE has vowed to fight your Keeping Students in Schools Act. There's talk from your government of invoking the notwithstanding clause. A lot of backlash on that move today, even Prime Minister Trudeau saying it's against the charter. What do you say to the workers who would have their charter rights violated?
Who is speaking for the rights of children to be in school? The right of a parent to go to work, the right of children to simply learn in a school. I'm sorry, I am deeply concerned when I hear a union after the last pandemic talk about a strike so casually 2 months into the school year after they've established a routine And now I believe, given that the union has decided not to move off of their nearly 50% demand in higher compensation, that they have put the province on a path to a strike. We didn't do that. We even met them on Sunday, which wasn't designed, we weren't supposed to meet, for the purpose of averting this needless strike, and they said no. And so, yes, we will move forward with legislation. The intent of this legislation is to keep kids in the classroom. We'll use every legal constitutional tool at our disposal to ensure stability for children, because enough is enough with the strikes. Someone has to speak up for these kids because they have rights too. And I believe the right to learn, the right to have basic nutrition for some of our most vulnerable, the rights to have access to therapy and developmental services. I mean, these kids need a say, and we're standing up for them and their parents. And as I say, I just really believe kids should be in school. That's the first principle that we're advancing in this legislation. And of course, we wouldn't be here if the union didn't decide to strike on Friday.
Well, Minister Lecce, this is quite the tense time for the workers, staff, students, parents all across this province. We appreciate your time answering our questions tonight.
Thank you.